भगवते वासुदेवाय नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अवत्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति सुखदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं सहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते रघुनाथ स्वामी नामे नमः। विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामे नमस्ते। गौरवाणी प्रचारिणी निर्विशेष पाश्चात्य चालम गिरिम यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य। हरे कृष्ण। Thank you all for joining the discussion. So we are actually continuing chapter 17 of Canto 5. This is the cosmology section, and the chapter is entitled The Descent of the River Ganges. So in case you had not known and you attended the last class, you would have found out that the river Ganges flows in quite a few places, not just emerging from the Himalayas and going into the Bay of Bengal and Ganga Sagar. So I'm just going to very quickly refresh, share the screen, we'll continue from there. We have completed half the chapter. It's a small chapter, around 23, 24 verses or so, around there in the 20s, and then almost 13 verses we have covered. So almost half of them. So the intention in today's class is to complete this chapter. Of course, as always, Krishna willing. Just quickly revise. Okay. Can you see the image? Okay, good.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you, Amit. So this is a summary of the Ganga's path. So what we discussed was the Lord's causeless mercy, that even though he is transcendental, he makes himself accessible to the conditioned living entities in various forms in this universe. And one of the ways by which he allows us to contact him, touch him, receive his mercy, which is imbued with his spiritual potency, is the Ganges River. Why? Even though we cannot directly touch the transcendental Lord, we can touch something which has touched the transcendental Lord. So this is the Tadiya Vastu. That is why the Charanamrit of the Lord is very important. Whatever is offered to the Lord is very, very transcendental because it becomes imbued with spiritual potency. So as we discussed, the Ganges started from the causal ocean when Lord Vamana's lotus feet, they broke through, the toenail broke through and created a crack on the covering of the universe, and then a few drops from the causal ocean flowed through, touched the reddish tinged lotus toes of the Lord, and being imbued by the transcendental nectar of the touch of the Lord's lotus feet, those pinkish water drops trickled into the universe. And Lord Shiva so excitedly received them on his head, where they remained for 1,000 years, celestial years. And then eventually the water came to Dhruvaloka. Dhruva, of course, being one of the greatest of devotees, and Dhruvaloka being a transcendental planet, Dhruva was always the most excited to receive the Ganges. And was always in a great celebratory mood because he always wanted to take the lotus feet of the Lord on his head. So putting the Ganges water on the head is like touching the lotus feet of the Lord on one's head. Of course, Dhruva is so fortunate that he is in Dhruvaloka is same as Shweta Dvipa, where Lord Karanadakshay Vishnu, Lord personally is staying there. The good thing for us is Dhruvaloka is visible to us. If you have a telescope, you can see. This is what we call commonly as the pole star. But sorry to inform you, you cannot see Kshirodakshay Vishnu just with a telescope. So that requires Premanjanachurita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaha Sadaiva. Needs eyes anointed with the salve of love. Anyway, so Dhruvaloka is the place where the Ganga first flows. And the Saptarshi planets, which are just close by, the 7 sages, who are also great pure devotees and eager to receive the lotus feet of the Lord. The Ganges then flows from Dhruvaloka to the planets of the Saptarishis. And from there, the residents of Chandraloka, being so eager to also have the benefit of the flow of the Ganges, transport water in airplanes, billions of airplanes, transfer tankers and tankers and tankers of water. And Ganges is brought to Chandraloka. Now, where exactly on Chandraloka she flows, and whether because she's subtle we cannot see it, we don't know. It is not mentioned here, but Prabhupada has mentioned oftentimes that Chandraloka, the moon as we see it as a barren, desolate planet, is not the Chandraloka. So where exactly is that lush vegetation with the Somras parties and all the wonderful residents? Because it's a heavenly planet. Chandraloka, Suryaloka, these are all heavenly planets. Chandraloka is a reasonably high standard heavenly abode. Anyway, so that's not the focus of our topic, but the water is forcefully transported by the residents of Chandraloka. We also discussed how from Chandraloka, because Chandra is also orbiting around Mount Sumeru, it is said that from the moon, the water of the Ganges comes atop Mount Sumeru. So at the center of Mount Sumeru, the river Ganges lands from the moon planet. So Mount Sumeru is this inverted cone-like figure which is made of gold, which is at the center of Jambudvip. It is at the center of actually Ilavarta Varsha, which is the center of Jambudvip, which is the center of Bhumandal. So I'm not going to show all those pictures again. We don't have that much time. But I hope you have the context imprinted in your mind by now. If not, I have posted the images, the WhatsApp group, and refer to them. So the water of the Ganges comes and first touches Mount Sumeru, because Bhumandal is part of Mount Sumeru. Sumeru is part of Bhumandal, perhaps the highest elevation in Bhumandal. So it lands here in the center, and the center is Brahmapuri, which is also known as Manavati. So it lands here and then breaks into four, you can call them tributaries of the Ganges. The Alaknanda, which is what actually comes later to Bharatvarsha, the Chakshu, the Bhadra, the Sita, which flows through these respective abodes. It is said the water, like a waterfall, falls from Mount Sumeru in four directions. And then there are these mountain ranges as a part of the Jambudvip, which we have briefly discussed earlier. It flows across the various varshas over the mountains and ultimately merges into the saltwater ocean, which is surrounding all the varshas. So obviously the Alaknanda branch, comes finally through the Kimpurusha Varsha, the Hari Varsha, Kimpurusha Varsha, and then Bharat Varsha. And then Bharat Khanda at the tip, southern tip, then it goes into the saltwater ocean. Okay. So this was kind of the summary of what we discussed, and the glories of Mother Ganga have been briefly discussed as well. Another point which we had discussed was the concept of the Bhauma Swarga. So Bhauma Swarga, so it is said out of the 9 varshas of Jambudvipa, other than Bharat Varsha, which is at the southern tip, which itself is divided into 9 khandas, only this part is considered to be Karma Bhumi. All the other 8 varshas are said to be Bhauma Swarga. So these are for pious people. This is still part of Bhumandal, but it is for pious people of Bhumandal, may take birth there based on their punya. The Bhagavatam more specifically says the typical scenario when people take birth in these other 8 varshas is when pious people from Bharat Varsha, because Bharat is Karma Bhumi, pious people from Bharat Varsha who perform a lot of punya go to the heavenly planets, let's say Chandraloka, Saptarshi Lokas, Indraloka, one of the other lokas, and after enjoying most of their piety, there is something left over. Correct? So let's say you plan you're based in KL, and then you plan a Europe trip. And after Europe trip, Switzerland, and a few other places, Austria, Germany, and that whole area, you go and see and spend lots and lots of money. And then you come back and then you still have a little bit more left in your budget, but not enough to go to USA or Australia, but just enough to go to Cameron Highland, Fraser Hill, small time holiday destinations. Not very expensive, relatively near, but still so much better than Kuala Lumpur. I mean, in terms of the environment and other things. So these heavenly planets are like that. They are so much better in their material condition of life as compared to Bharat Varsha, but they're not as good as the heavenly planets. But if you match the description is very much like the heavenly planets, 10,000 years of life, beautiful bodies, no aging, no disease. At the end of the 10,000 years, the couples, they give birth and then they pass away the last year of their life. But otherwise, they're just having a good time roaming around these mountains and the lakes and the streams, eating the fruits and having the drinks and partying and getting attracted to each other. So it is like a one long 10,000-year-old party. And what is the consequence? Cannot focus on spiritual life, because this is the condition. Because they'll be thinking, let me enjoy now. When my punya will go away, and then when I go to Bharat Varsha, I will do. So the conditions, soul's problem is this, because it's influenced by Maya, it's always postponing its surrender to the Supreme Personality of God. Anyway, so we discussed that part as well. And now we are continuing our discussion. So one thing Shukadev Goswami mentions, Parikshit Maharaj, that the Lord is so kind that even in these 9 varshas, the Lord makes sure that within these 9 varshas, he is worshipped by this primary residents in one of his 9 forms. There are different 9 forms in the 9 different varshas. And the primary residents of each of these varshas worship that particular deity form of the Lord. And in that way, even though they are on heavenly planets, at least the primary residents as well as the other residents maintain their focus that the Lord is actually ultimately the owner and proprietor. Even though they are not engaged in active devotional service, they are not forgetful of the Lord altogether. So this is the difference between, the Homa Swarga, the Divya Swarga, vis-a-vis the Bila Swarga, because the Bila Swarga are enjoying without any recognition of the Lord or worship of the Lord. Very atheistic, materialistic civilization. So who are the residents of these 8 varshas, and which are the deities, how they are being worshipped, and the various prayers? That details we'll cover in the next chapter, because the next chapter and the early part of the next to next chapter is dedicated to that conversation. So we'll quickly summarize that in the following class. But just to mention that there are various personalities. For example, in Bharat Varsha, there is the Narayan Rishi. That is the predominating deity who's mainly worshipped in Bharat Varsha. There is one thing, and I'm going to stop the sharing here. There is one interesting thing which is mentioned in the purport, and I wanted to share that even though it is not mentioned directly in the verse here, Srila Prabhupada mentions that the Lord is so kind. So first of all, because he's not accessible, obviously he's come in the form of the Ganges river. He's also come in the deity form, and that is why in these 9 varshas he's situated in various deities. There is the Narayan deity, there is the deity of Sankarshan, there is the deity of Matsya, there is the deity of Sankarshan, Narasimha, Pradyumna, Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Rama, Hayashirsha, all these various forms. In each of these varshas, there is the Lord who's present in his deity form. And we discussed this briefly also, how in the deity form, the Lord makes himself available, conditioned souls like us, so that we can actually access him and worship him in a form which is perceptible to our material mind and senses. So that is the Lord's kindness. But besides the deity form of the Lord, the purport, it is mentioned that in this universe, because the verse also briefly mentions this point, the Lord in his Chaturvyuha also expands and becomes personally present within each universe. The Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha, the quadruple expansions of the Lord, are personally present within the universe in their transcendental original form. Of course, not easily accessible to us, but they are present in 4 forms. And Srila Prabhupada explains this. He quotes the Padma Puran, in the Padma Puran, which is actually referred to in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami, where he says that the Padma Puran mentions that the same Lord who's in the spiritual world present as Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha, he is represented in the material world. So what are these four forms? It is said there are four Vaikunthas within the material world. Now, this is very interesting. Most devotees are not aware of this. So please listen to this very carefully. So obviously we know that there is the Vaikuntha form which is beyond the material universe altogether, the transcendental realm. So that is the eternal Vaikuntha. But within each universe, there are four abodes of Lord Hari. The Lord is present in his transcendental form. So in his form as Vasudev, the Lord is present in a divine Vaikuntha abode, Vishnu Loka, which is known as a planet by the name Vedavati, within the Garbhodaka ocean. So who's this Lord who's within the Garbhodaka ocean? It is Garbhodaka Shayi Vishnu. So looks like he's quite inaccessible because, going into Garbhodaka ocean, going all the way deep into Vedavati to access Garbhodaka Shayi Vishnu, given his size and the size of the universe, it's practically almost impossible. So this is where the Lord is present as Garbhodaka Shayi Vishnu, and he is considered an expansion of Lord Vasudeva. And that particular abode is known by the name as Vedavati. Please remember. Then there's another Vishnu Lok, just like this is the lowest Vishnu Lok, there is a top Vishnu Lok, which is situated above Brahma Lok. If you remember the structure of the universe, we have the various planetary systems, right? We have the up to Dhruva Lok and then the Janar, Mahar, Tapa, Brahma Lok, which is also sometimes known as Satya Lok. Above that, even though it is not shown in the diagram here, above that and below the coverings of the universe, there is actually another spiritual planet by the name Vishnu Loka. And there the Lord is present in a four-armed form, and is an expansion of Lord Sankarshan. It is said in certain incarnations, in certain past times, even though I do not remember now, I had heard about that, but I do not recollect that on top of my head. Sometimes when the Lord comes, he actually comes from this Vishnu Loka. So that is also a Vaikuntha abode, but that's a Vaikuntha abode within this universe. There are also perfected living beings who are staying on that Vaikuntha Loka. And I remember a few weeks ago, Suresh Prabhu had asked a question about Satya Loka, the use of the word Satya Loka. So sometimes Satya Loka is used to refer to Brahma Loka. Sometimes the word Satya Loka is used to refer to this Vishnu Loka. So we have to understand the context. But to make it simple for us, we can say Brahma Loka and above that Vishnu Loka. There is nothing higher than Vishnu Loka within this cosmic manifestation. Okay. The third form of the Lord is situated in Dwarka Puri. In Dwarka, the Lord is situated in his form of Pradyumna. And the fourth form of the Lord, is Aniruddha, is situated in the ocean of milk on an island known as Shvetadweep. This ocean of milk is in Dhruvaloka, and within that ocean of milk, there is an island known as Shvetadweep. And on that island of Shvetadweep, there is a place known as Airavati Pura. And on that Airavati Pura place, that abode, is where Lord Hari, in the form of Aniruddha lies on Ananta. So this is the popular Vishnu lying on Ananta in the ocean of milk. The oft told story. So this scene is in Shvetadvip, which is on Dhruvalok. So if you look out of your windows and you can see the sky, if there is not too much of smog in your cities, then you can see the pole star. Within the pole star somewhere, in a subtle way, of course, grossly we cannot see it with a telescope, but inside there somewhere, there is an ocean of milk. Inside there is an island of Shvetadvip, within which is situated the holy abode of Airavati Pura. It's to be a town. Not a lot of detail is mentioned here. All are staying there. I think that there would be other attendants and servants of the Lord also residing in that abode. So these are the four forms. Again, a quick recap. I thought this will be very interesting information for you. Anybody recollects? First one, Vasudev expansion is situated where?
Vedavati.
Vedavati, yeah.
Vedavati. Inside which ocean? Garbhodaka ocean.
Garbhodaka ocean.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So now I want somebody to answer who has not answered. Where is Lord Sankarshan situated?
Sankarshan is a different one. That's,
Vishnu Loka.
Vishnu Loka.
Yeah.
Above the Satya Loka.
Above Brahmalok.
Above Brahmalok. Correct. Thank
Yeah.
you. And the third form?
Pradyumna in Dwarkapuri.
Dwarka. Puri.
And the fourth, Aniruddha?
Aniruddha.
On top of Ananta.
Swatadi.
Airavati Pura.
Swatadi.
Not Vedavati. Vedavati is the first one. Airavati Pura.
Iravati Pura.
Airavati Pura, which is in Shvetadvip, which is on Dhruvalok. So there he is lying on whom?
Ananta.
Lord Ananta.
Ananta.
So please remember, that is Ananta. And there is another Shesha who's supporting Bhumandal. These are two different expansions. Both are actually expansions of Lord Sankarshan. But Ananta is supporting Aniruddha, who's Kshirodakshay Vishnu. And Shesha, the Lord is not lying on Shesha. The Lord is lying on Ananta. Sometimes we say the word Ananta Shesha. But actually Ananta and Shesha are two different expansions. Both are multi-hooded, serpent-formed divine personalities. But Aniruddha is lying on Ananta in Airavati Pura and Shvetadvip within Dhruvalok. Whereas the Shesha that we speak about is supporting the Bhumandal on his hoods. You remember the picture that we have been discussing? Shesha is resting on Kurma and supporting the Bhumandal on his hoods. Okay, so please remember, these are very finer points because these names come again and again and again and again across scriptures, and we are not sometimes quite sure who's Ananta and who's Shesha. Okay, I thought this will be interesting because I found this information very interesting for us. Having come to this part, the last almost 10 odd verses approximately are actually prayers by Lord Shiva to Lord Sankarshan in Ilavarta Varsha. So now zoom back into Ilavarta Varsha. You remember, right? Ilavarta Varsha is the central Varsha within Jambudvip, within which, at the center of which Mount Sumeru is situated. So if you recollect, Ilavarta Varsha, there is this beautiful mountain of Kailash, and we spoke, and Lord Shiva is residing with Bhavani there. A very, very beautiful place. Lord Shiva is known as Bhava and his wife is known as Bhavani. It is said Bhava and Bhavani are served, especially Bhava, Lord Shiva, is served by 10 billion maid servants of Parvati Bhavani. 10 billion. It is also said that in that part of Ilavarta Varsha where Lord Shiva resides, which is mainly on Mount Kailash and the valley between Karavira mountain and Mount Kailash. I'm not going to go back to the pictures now. But in that area where Lord Shiva is essentially residing and he's being served by these associates. And this topic is described in more greater detail a little later in the Bhagavatam, but we'll not go into that. Right now, this is sufficient to mention that Lord Shiva is the only male. Durga Devi does not tolerate any other male entering into this area. It is said at one time, long back, I don't know how long back, there is a pastime in the Puranas mentioned that some sages happened to come into this area where Shiva and Parvati were sporting in a romantic way. And they kind of just came in without ringing doorbell, without taking appointment, without announcing their arrival. And Parvati Devi felt very embarrassed. And then suddenly, correct? I mean, sometimes just imagine, you are with your spouse and you are in a romantic situation, and suddenly the neighbor not realize, seeing that the door is open, walks in and comes straight into your bedroom. It's going to be so embarrassing, and not only embarrassing, it will make that person so angry. So Parvati Devi became very upset and she put a curse after that to say that if any male enters this area, immediately that male will be transformed into a female, because Lord Shiva in this area should be the only male. So that's a very, interesting thing. So this curse is said to be only effective between Kailash and Karavira mountains. Obviously, there are the other areas of Ilavarta Varsha, which are also various different mountains on which so many devatas and their consorts sport. So obviously, they are not becoming female. Now, the interesting thing which is mentioned about Lord Shiva here, that Lord Shiva in Ilavarta Varsha is always situated and absorbed in worshipping Lord Sankarshan. Lord Sankarshan is the predominating deity of Ilavarta Varsha and is also the Aradhya Dev for Lord Shiva. Now, the Bhagavatam also explains why Lord Shiva is attracted to Sankarshan. It is said that the tamasi principle, which is the essential principle necessary for the destruction of the material world, because Lord Shiva is in charge of the mode of ignorance and tamoguna, and he utilizes the tamasi principle. The predominating deity from whom this principle comes is Lord Sankarshan. So in that way, both Lord Shiva and Sankarshan, because Lord Shiva is considered like the empowered form of Lord Sankarshan to actually carry out destruction in contact with the modes of material nature. But Lord Sankarshan maintains his position in a transcendental way and is in charge as the deity controlling the tamasi energy. The Bhagavatam says that the Supreme Lord Sankarshan is worshipped by Lord Shiva with a very beautiful prayer. So let me recite that beautiful prayer in glorification of Lord Sankarshan. So Lord Shiva says, Lord Shiva is also referred to here as Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, because Lord Shiva is also an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though he is a Guna avatar, even though he is curd and not milk, but even then he is an Ishvara Tattva. Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaya Sarva Guna Sankhyanaya Anantaya Avyaktaya Namaha. The most powerful Lord Shiva says, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you in your expansion as Lord Sankarshan. You are the reservoir of all transcendental qualities. Although you are unlimited, you remain unmanifest to the non-devotees. Now, this is very interesting, and these are very subtle aspects of our Vedic philosophy. Sankarshan is Ishvara. Lord Shiva is also Ishvara. Why one Ishvara is worshipping another Ishvara? So, like we have been discussing multiple times, there are many expansions of the Lord, and expansions have their expansions. And when a particular form is an expansion of one form, that expansion is serving the purpose or the function of the source that he is coming from. In the case of Lord Shiva, even though he is Ishvara, out of his own sweet will, the Lord has taken that form in which he is in contact with material nature. So even though he himself cannot be said to be affected by his own sweet will, he accepts contact with Bhavani, Durga, who's Trigunamayi, for the purpose of management of the affairs of this world, including the affairs related to destruction. And that's why that form of Ishvara, from a category perspective, is considered lower than the transcendental platform of Lord Sankarshana, who is totally Gunatita. So that is why Lord Shiva is actively in contact with the Tamasi energy, whereas Sankarshan is the predominating deity for the Tamasi energy. So there are another few prayers. So the rest of the chapter actually is more of prayers by which Lord Shiva worships Lord Sankarshan. And these prayers actually reflect what I just mentioned, reflect what is the attitude that Lord Shiva has towards Sankarshan. And I'm going to read some of the verses and some of the points which Lord Shiva mentions, because when we read these points, we'll understand how Lord Shiva is looking at Sankarshan. Because Lord Shiva sees himself, even though he's Ishvara, he's in contact with the modes. Obviously, for a reason, he doesn't need to be, but in that form, he takes that form to be in contact to perform a particular function. But he's always in recognition that his source, who's Sankarshan, is actually fully transcendental. So he worships the Lord in beautiful ways. So I'll recite a couple of verses. Bhaje bhajanyarana pada pankajam bhagasya kritsasya paramparayanam bhakteshu alam bhavita bhuta bhavanam bhavapaham tva bhavabhavam ishwar. Lord Shiva is saying, I worship the Supreme Lord, whose lotus feet protect the devotees from all dangers. He's worshipping Lord Sankarshan like this. Who's the highest shelter of all six opulences, highest shelter, who manifests his different forms for the satisfaction of his devotees, and who stops the repetition of birth and death, and is the origin of material creation. And what is the special quality of the Lord? The special quality of the Lord is that he is unaffected by the material modes. Na yasya maya guna chitta vrittibhir nirikshato hi anvapi drishtirajyate ishe yathano ajitamanyu ramhasham jastam namanyeta jigushur atmanaha. Although this Lord who is transcendental, although he glances over material nature, is not affected by material nature. In bracket, unlike my form, which is directly in contact with material nature. But we means he is referring to himself. We cannot control the force of our anger. The Lord is also known, Shiva is also known as Rudra. Why? Because he becomes angry. Now you can say, why does he become angry? Because of the contact with the modes of ignorance. Lust is in the mode of passion. Anger is in the mode of ignorance. Sometimes Lord Shiva has the reputation of being quickly angry. So he says, but we cannot control the force of our anger. Lord Vishnu doesn't become angry. Sometimes Lord Vishnu may pretend to be angry just to instruct the living entity. But when Bhrigu Maharaj, the great sage, went and kicked Lord Vishnu, he went to Shvetadvip, kicked Lord Vishnu, who was lying on Ananta, kicked him on his chest. Lord Vishnu was still undisturbed because he's transcendent. He said, "Oh, Bhrigu Maharaj, your feet must have got hurt. Let me massage your feet because my chest is so hard and your feet are so soft." But the same Lord Vishnu, when he manifests in the form of Shiva because he's in contact with the modes, and the same Bhrigu goes to Lord Shiva, Lord Shiva says, "Oh, Bhrigu, come, let me embrace you." And Bhrigu tells him, "No, no, no, your body is so dirty, covered with crematorium ashes. I am Brahmana, I am sage. Don't embrace me." Lord Shiva becomes very angry and he's about to curse him. I think Parvati Devi stops him. He's after all your brother, don't get too upset. So why does this happen? Because Lord Shiva, by his own sweet will, in that particular form, has contact with the modes of material. And this is what he's saying. But we cannot control the force of our anger. Therefore, who desiring to conquer the senses will not worship the Lord? That is why Prabhupada repeatedly says across the Bhagavatam, and Lord Shiva says also, Mukti Pradada Sarvesham Vishnur Evana Samshaya. Why we worship Lord Vishnu and Krishna and Vishnu and all the various Vishnu Tattvas is because they're totally transcendental to the Gunamayi Maya. The same Vishnu takes the form of Shiva, associate with Gunamayi Maya, who's Durga. But in his original transcendental form, as Narayan, Vishnu, Krishna, Rama, Narasimha, and so on and so forth, the Lord is so transcendental, and Sankarshan in this case, that by worshipping that Lord, one can oneself be totally freed from the influence of material nature. If one worships a Guna avatar, either it's a Guna avatar of Rajogun or Tamogun, the scriptures say one can be elevated to a high degree, but one cannot be fully liberated from the modes of material nature without receiving blessings of Lord Vishnu or Lord Hari. And then he continues a few more verses to glorify the transcendental forms of the Lord. He says, the beautiful transcendental form of Lord Sankarshan, the Sankarshan's beautiful eyes are also reddish. They have a reddish tinge. And a materialistic person, if he sees the reddish eyes of Lord Sankarshan, they may think that, oh, he's also intoxicated, like people on earth who drink. Because when people on earth drink, also their eyes become red. And they are full of anger. And fearful. But he's trying to tell that the eyes of Lord Sankarshan are reddish, but they are not like the eyes of materialistic persons. Because the Lord is never affected by any kind of material attractions. The example Lord Shiva gives is the Nagapatnis. This is referring to Krishna Leela. The Nagapatnis, their hearts were agitated when they were touched by the lotus feet of Krishna. But the Lord remains unagitated even when his lotus feet touched the Nagapatnis. Again, which means that Lord Hari always remains unagitated. And from this Lord Sankarshan, who is the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction, in so many ways is managing the universe. From him comes the Lord's form of Ananta, unlimited. And from him also comes the Lord's form of Shesha, who's supporting the universe on his head. So Pavaneshwar Prabhu made a particular remark, which I want to share with you. He said that while Prabhupada, for the sake of simplicity, so as to not confuse people who are uneducated in Vedic cosmology, mentions in very simple words that Ananta Shesha supports universes on his hoods. Just as a very simple explanation. But if we go into the technicalities of the actual situation, the detailed understanding is that Shesha is actually supporting the Bhumandal disk of this universe, and in each universe of the respective universe. So in millions of Sheshas are supporting millions of Bhumandals. Bhumandal is, practically the main disk in the universe. So in that way, on his various hoods, he's supporting the, but in a simplified way, Prabhupada refers Shesha as supporting many universes on his many hoods. Lord Shiva says the support of the entire universe, this whole Bhumandal disk, to Shesha is significant. It is like supporting a mustard seed. The whole universal support is like supporting a mustard seed. It is not heavier than that. Then Lord Shiva explains his own position. He says, from the Supreme Lord Sankarshan, from that transcendental platform comes Lord Brahma. From Lord Brahma, I am born. And then come the various devatas and then the 5 elements and the senses. So I am also coming ultimately from the Supreme Lord. Therefore, I worship him because he is the supreme controller. We all are controlled by him. Lord Brahma also, myself also, all the devatas, just like birds are bound by a rope. And even all the potencies that Brahmaji and myself manifest in terms of our functions for managing the affairs of this world are also coming ultimately from. And this is something which Krishna also mentions in the Bhagavad Gita. That devatas do not have any independent power to perform anything or bless even their own devotees. Maya iva vihitan hitan. Ultimately, that potency is the empowerment of those particular devatas or gunavatars by Lord Hari. Those people, the Lord concludes his prayers, those people who are bound by the modes of material nature. What is the characteristic of those who are bound by the modes of material nature? They are bound by the karma pash, karma parvanim. They are tied up by the fruits of fruitive activities. Only when one receives the favor of Lord Sankarshan, Lord Hari, one can get out of that Maya. Otherwise, one will continue to remain trapped. I offer my respects to that Lord, who is the ultimate cause of creation and annihilation. So in this way, Lord Shiva, even though he is Ishvara Tattva, he is always honoring and worshipping Lord Sankarshan. You can see that he's in meditation oftentimes. So if somebody is wondering what is Lord Shiva meditating on, Lord Shiva meditates on the form of Lord Sankarshan. And this is based on the authority of the Bhagavad. Krishna, when he was in Dwarka, he would also meditate every day on waking up. But because for Krishna, there is nothing higher than himself. Krishna meditates on himself. That's what the Bhagavad says. Lord Shiva meditates on Sankarshan. So with this, we come to the conclusion of this chapter, the descent of river Ganges. So I'm just going to quickly summarize in 2 minutes and then we'll open up the floor. So 3 subtopics have been covered in this particular chapter. One is the descent of Ganges itself, which we again revised today. The second is the 9 Varshas of Jambudvip and the special position of, the description of the Bhauma Swargas and the special position of Bharat Varsha in brief. And the third part is the prayers by Lord Shiva towards Lord Sankarshan in Ilavarta Varsha. Now the glories of Bharatvarsha and the special position of Bharatvarsha is described in much more detail after another 2 chapters. In chapter 19, if I'm not wrong. So we will come to that because there are many verses which go into very specific detail of some of the points that I mentioned now, and there are explicit verses which describe the glories of Bharatvarsha. In chapter 19, yes, it's verses 21 to 28 in chapter 19. So we'll come to that. So we are going to conclude for today, 9:51. So I'm opening up the floor. 1 second. Yes. Yeah. Suraj Prabhu has raised his hand. Yes.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, 2 questions. The universe, what you are explaining, right? It is one universe or our universe, Prabhu?
Our universe. The essential structure of universes seems to be similar to this. The essential, even though not a lot of details is given. Our assumption is there are 14 planetary systems. There is a Garbhodakshayi, Kshirodakshayi, Vishnu within each universe. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu are the Trinity who are managing the affairs. So these principles are common. This basic framework template is common to all universes. So yes, we are discussing our universe here. That is a specific question. But if you extrapolate that question and ask whether each and every universe is exactly like this, maybe not. But like what I said, certain principles are similar because different universes are also of different sizes. It is said even the Brahma in different universe has multiple heads of different capacity or potency. Our Brahma is quad processor. He has four heads, 4 processors. There is octo processor, Brahma also who has 8 heads in another universe. There are Brahmas with 100 heads, 1,000 heads, million heads. Krishna tells Brahma that your universe is, small one. Small. There are much more bigger and complicated universes. So when he says more complicated, what does that mean? That's not described in detail in the scriptures. At least I am not aware. But maybe some scriptures refer, but at least I am not aware. But there could be some variances across universes in terms of, how certain features and certain aspects of material nature are manifested. But I am personally not aware of so much detail.
Yeah, the other question, Prabhu. Ilavarta Varsha, you have 2 avatars of Shiva, right? And how does it differ from Shiva Loka, Prabhu?
Which 2 are there of Shiva?
Like you said in Ilavarta Varsha, at Mount Himalaya in one more place, Lord Shiva
No,
resides.
Mount Himalaya is not in Ilavarta Varsha. So, so there are many Rudras, out of which Shankar is situated on the Himalayas. And Lord, and this particular Rudra, is known as Shiva, is residing on Mount Kailash in Ilavarta Varsha.
So how are they different from Shiva Loka, Prabhu, which comes above that, our material realm?
That Shiva Loka is Sadashiva Loka. That Sadashiva Loka is beyond the material manifestation. That Shiva is almost Vishnu-like because that Shiva is beyond the influence of the modes of material nature. And he doesn't have any contact with. So that Shiva is the pure expansion of Sankarshan. And this Shiva is the curd expansion from the milk of Lord Sankarshan. You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the origin of the Shambhu Tattva. That is Sadashiva. That is why there is Shiva and Sadashiva. Shiva means auspicious. Lord Shiva is auspicious in all situations. But still Shiva has a contact with material energy. So who is Sadashiva? He's that original Shiva who has no contact. That's why he's fully auspicious. One is auspicious, one is completely auspicious.
So, Prabhuji, so Sadashiva is Ishvara compared to other
All
Shiva.
of both are Ishvara, but they are different tattvas.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So that Sadashiva is almost in Vishnu Tattva category, almost. Because he's transcendental. But in terms of manifestation of the opulences, even though that is not very clearly described, it is said that the Vaikunthas are considered more opulent and higher than Sadashiv Loka. But what is the nature of that exact difference? I personally do not recollect. It is mentioned to some extent in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. But I do not have that information handy because their Lord Shiva of Sadashiva Loka is telling his devotees in Sadashiva Loka the glories of Lord Hari and the residents of Vaikuntha. So if you want more information, you perhaps have to refer to that. I don't have that information ready with me. But there is a qualitative difference. The Vaikunthas are considered one level higher. Correct? Just like there is Europe. It's wonderful to go everywhere in Europe. But certain parts of Europe are more developed than others. Switzerland may be better than Czech Republic. For example, Czech Republic is also beautiful. The city of Prague is also very beautiful. I'm saying this because I've been to both places. So, it's also beautiful, but more opulent and more beautiful in various ways. So like that, even within the transcendental realm, there are categories. Good, better, best. And Goloka is considered the topmost of the topmost. The pinnacle
Yes,
of
it's clear.
perfection.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Santanamji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Pranam Prabhuji. This Yegadisi recently went is Sayana Yegadisi, and after this
Devashayani, yes.
and Lord is going to Yoga Nidra position.
Yes.
So prior to this, what was the position? Because during that time also Lord reclined on the Ananta and Ananta Harsesha. Ananta.
Yes.
Ananta. And during that time also he is meditating what was the position previously, and now he is in Yoga Nidra. How to differentiate? Is there any terminology?
So at least I personally am not aware of a lot of description. So I mean, while we think of Shirodakshay Vishnu as lying always on Ananta, and being served by Lakshmi Devi, obviously for 6 months of our time he's awake and 6 months he's sleeping. That is true. But now the question is, sorry, not 6 months, for the 4 months, Chaturmas, yeah. But during the time that he's awake, is he awake and lying on Ananta, or is he walking around on Shvetadvipa meeting and his devotees and giving his associates? I do not know. Maybe there are other references in the other scriptures elsewhere, so I'm not aware, so I don't want to make a wrong comment. But it is true that that is considered the period of waking and sleeping. That much I know. And it should be referring to that, to the Lord in Shirisagar. Okay, if I find out more, I can share more. But right now, so there is so much unlimited things to know.
Yes, Prabhuji. Today's message I saw like we are talking about one city, and it is a very tiny part, and the spiritual world is so much big and so much of material and
There is one comment in Yoga Vashishta, even though Yoga Vashishta is not a work which we as devotees study, but there is a mention where Vashishta Muni, Vashishta is telling Lord Ramachandra. He talks about multiple universes, and he also says that multiple universes also have multiple variances. Even though I don't remember the details of the verses and what exactly are those differences, if I briefly recollect, there could be even changes in the way certain things are manifested. So because the Lord's creation is also so much full of variety, just like the spiritual world is so much full of variety, even the material universes are full of variety. In fact, material scientists also say, because nowadays in material science also the concept of parallel universes, multiple universes, multiverse is also getting very actively discussed. And it's very amazing that there are amazing parallels. They are also talk about universes as expanding into a bubble-like shape. And we also talk about universes like being a bubble and multiple bubbles existing in the Karana ocean. So if you think deeply, there is room for some, even though I don't want to claim, it is that understanding because I don't know. But there is room for some equivalence of certain concepts. And even material scientists say that it is fully possible that the laws of nature across various universes may also be fundamentally different. And that is why the whole manifestation itself may be totally different. Now, obviously, our scriptures don't want to confuse us too much. We already have enough confusion, even understanding this much. So they perhaps don't go into so much detail. But in some conversations, there are references to this kind of complicated variances across universes. So I will just say that that is a possibility. But what is the extent of variance? Unless there are very clear scriptural references, we wouldn't know. But the basic principles is the same, which means all are coming from the body of Karanadakshay Vishnu. They are all Brahma under. There are Brahmas of different capacities, and there is the three Murtis who are managing it. But internally, how exactly they are organized and what are the variable parameters across universes, that is not something which I am aware of. Okay. Did I answer your question? I don't know. Yeah. I can only answer as much as I know. So by the way, also we have to, when we go into the Vedic cosmology, we are already discussing it, but when we go to the later part of this canto, when we understand the movement of the planets, the movement of the sun, then we will be able to understand why our day is like this and the day of the Devatas is 6 months and night is 6 months. So all this is derived from how the sun is moving. The sun is moving up on the top of Manasuttar mountain range around Mount Sumeru in a particular orbit. So anyway, we'll come to that topic. We may not be technical on it, but let's see. But a simple explanation also is that 6 months of the Devatas, 6 months on earth is 1 day of the half a day of the Devatas. So our 1 year is there 24 hours. 6 months is day, Uttarayan and Dakshinayan. So as the sun goes up and down, it creates on the heavenly planets days and nights. The sun's rays go only as far as the heavenly planets. The sun rays do not go, they go maximum up to Dhruvalok. Beyond Dhruvalok, the sun's rays do not shine. Janar, Mahar, Tapa and Satyaloka are not illuminated by Surya Dev. They are self-effulgent planets. They are not dark. They are self-effulgent planets. The Bilaswarga are illuminated by the gems on the heads of the Nagas. And the higher planets are self-effulgent. The sun's rays is only over Bhumandal. and up to the heavens, all the way up to Dhruva, including Saptarshi Lokas and all the other planets. If you don't understand this right now, don't worry. Once we understand the detailed structure, these things will become clear.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yes, who was next? Tarun? Yeah, Tarun first, then back to Suraj. Suraj is a repository of million questions.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Tarun here.
Yes, Hari Hari.
Prabhuji, actually, I have two questions. The first question I have on the forehead of Brahma. So, does the forehead of Brahma indicate four yuga?
No, it is related to the four Vedas.
Okay, got it. That's fine. The another question
The
is
four heads
on-
also have, each of the heads also has a specific name. I don't remember it.
Oh,
But there may be more to it also. I have limited understanding, but there may be more to it. But this much I have heard or read somewhere that speaks the four Vedas through the four heads.
okay. I was asking this question because you just said that a different universe may have the different Brahma with multiple heads. So means that strike because one Brahma means 1 year equals to 4. That's what I read in Gita, means equals to 4 yugas of Brahma. So I was thinking of that.
No, there's no connection between the heads and the number four, in terms of the yugas. We will cover this in the subsequent chapters, but just to let you know now, since you mentioned this, and it may be of interest to you and to all of you, I mean, that the four yugas apply only to Bharatvarsha.
Okay.
There is no Satya, Trita, Dwapar and Kali in the higher planets. This is mentioned in the Bhagavad very explicitly, so there's no doubt about this. So there's so little we know. Satya, Trita, Dwapar, Kali, this whole cycle of 100%, 75%, 50%, 25% going down to zero of dharma is applicable only to karma bhumi. To the planets, even in Bhauma Swarga, the other 8 varshas, the situation there is like that of, like the condition of Treta Yuga on earth all the time. Okay.
Okay, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, one question means that just strike into the mind. Just like we are reading Bhagavad Gita, we are reading Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita as well.
Yeah.
So will these things means the knowledge that we will gain, and will this go to our next birth also along with us? Yes, with our Sukshma Sharira.
Whatever spiritual advancement and whatever realization you have attained, whatever devotion you have attained, whatever you have internalized, all learning, good and bad, will go with you. You may not necessarily have all the information. It's not that if you have by hearted 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita, next life you come remembering 700 verses. But whatever devotional progress, spiritual progress, so in terms of spiritual advancement, if you have made 1%, next life you will start from percent. Go ahead.
Got it.
Yeah. Which means you will automatically have, simple words, whatever level of detachment from material things and whatever level of attachment to Krishna and faith and other things and devotion that you have, that will automatically be carried forward. Not necessarily, oh, I will remember Vedic Bhagavad cosmology class and I'll remember where is Mount Sumeru and where is Alaknanda river, That information you may have to reread. It will still be in your subtle body, but you may have to still reread it. Some people, very rare cases, are able even to carry information across lifetimes, but that is exception. But generally, in terms of what we will remember, we will not be able to remember any of our previous lives, but our samskars are created based on what we have done previously. So those samskars will propel us in the same direction that we have already been progressing towards.
Got it, Prabhuji. Thank you,
Suresh,
Prabhuji.
one more. Yeah, thank you, Tarun.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. One general curious question, Prabhu. I was seeing one video like last week when in Tripura, one Rath Yatra, like few of the
Yeah, very sad.
devotees got electrocuted. And other way, if you see, right, some of the big procession, the stampede happens. So how do we look out to this situation? Is it a tragedy, or since devotees are like dying in front of Lord, how do we see it, Prabhu?
There is both a tragedy and a blessing. It is also a
Okay.
tragedy. We don't celebrate such situations and say, wow, they died. No, we have to look at it from a practical perspective, see that, this could have been avoided by, whatever. I don't know the details of the episode. I just know that the particular wire, high tension wire, came in
I know.
contact with the Rath, and I don't know how many, but quite a few devotees lost their lives and many were injured. So very tragic episode. Of course, it is in one sense their good fortune, but of course we don't want to present it like that. But from a higher sense, it's a good fortune that they gave up their body on the Rath or during the Rath. So that will bring its own blessing also. So ultimately, what is the destination of those individuals will depend ultimately on the Lord's decision based on the individual soul's progress, his desire, particular circumstances. So we cannot give any generic sweeping statement about what happens to whom. A pure devotee can die in the most God-forsaken, so to say, nothing is God-forsaken, but from a material perspective, the most sinful, abominable place, but die in pure Krishna consciousness and go back to God. But a person who's not a devotee but pretending to be a devotee can give up his life inside the altar next to the Lord and not yet attain the Lord. So ultimately, we have to understand that attaining the Lord is not just a matter of material arrangement, of physical proximity. It is ultimately based on pleasing the Lord. So we see that as a sad episode. But yeah, within sad episodes also, the Lord, of course, the Lord's hand is definitely there. Otherwise, how it will happen? Why? What happens to whom? Sometimes people become very disturbed. How, when you are participating in Rath, how can Jagannath do like this? So that is not our problem. Our CPU, Brahma with 4 quad processor cannot figure out what is Krishna's plan, why we are trying to figure out. So Krishna knows what is best. Each one of us has our own unique karma and situations and desires and journeys, and that the exact reasons we will never be able to figure out. But we know from a principal perspective that those who are sincerely serving the Lord takes care of them. And taking care of the devotees sometimes may include protecting the devotee's body, and sometimes it may also include terminating the life of that devotee and giving him another better situation to continue his spiritual life. Now, why exactly he chooses that? What is the background? What is the karma? How we will know? What appears and what is the actual situation may be very hard for us to figure out.
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Good. Okay, so we will conclude our class. So, okay, I just want to announce that this Tuesday, we will not be having our class, so the CC class. So we will see each other on next Saturday. And next Saturday, we will begin the next chapter, which is the 18th chapter. 18th chapter is entitled The Prayers Offered to the Lord by the Residents of Jambudvip, which is the 9 Varshas of Jambudvip, who are the residents and how they are offering prayers to the presiding deity. And there are some interesting things there. I will not go through all the details because quite a lot of prayers and a lot of details are there, but I think we can just do a quick summarization of this chapter. Okay, thank you very much. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Samaveta Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. Thank you very
Jai.
much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sachi Prema Mataji,
Thank you,
Sneha
Prabhuji.
ji,
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Haribol, Anand Sundari Mataji, Shraddha ji, Archana ji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Hare
Charan
Krishna,
Lakshmi
Prabhuji.
Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Puja ji, Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yes, Shalini and Suraj. Thank you, as always. Sri Devi ji, Indulekha Mataji, Amit and Priya, Anand Sundari Mataji, Bhaskar is always
Krishna.
enthusiastic. I just read UK is having some 14-15 Rath Yatras this year. That's also good.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
next July 15th, we have like Ratha Yatra in New Brindavan, Prabhu. So I'm planning to go
Oh, New Vrindavan is a very special place.
West Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the place where Radhanath Maharaj spent his early years in ISKCON.
Okay.
Prabhupada's Palace of Gold is there.
Yeah.
Yes, Mihira and Aditi. Haribo, so nice to see both of you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, how are you both?
Fine, Prabhuji.
Please keep coming. I'm so happy to see both of you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hari. Okay, so I will see you next Saturday. So please, my request always is please read the chapter and the purports. There is so much deep understanding in these chapters, and the more we read, we realize so little we know. But our scriptures are full of so much beautiful information. And if we understand, then it all ties together logically very beautifully. If you don't understand these nuances, we just become confused. Okay, then we'll say, oh, scriptures are wrong. One place it says Lord Shiva is in Ilavarth Varsha. One place it says he's in the Himalayas. One place he says in Sadashiva. All wrong. They don't know. They're still discussing where he is. But yeah, he's in all 3 places. Lord Vishnu is in 4 places. His direct form within this universe. Plus he's in 9 deity forms in the 9 Varshas. What to speak of the other planets and all that. We are not even discussing and counting that. So there is so much to know. Should not be very quick to find fault with our scriptures, which are actually compiled by perfected souls. Thank you. Hare Krishna.